Hello and welcome to the Knights of Lorcana. Now we have a special game for you tonight where we are seeing Bowman versus Silent Knight. Now this is of course going to be week 1 of the Knights of Lorcana League where we get to see the best of 3 matches. And they are going to be battling head to head, and it looks like tonight we are going to be having Amber Steel piloted by Silent Knight, followed by Blurple being piloted by Bowman. Now this is going to be a really interesting matchup because right now we don't exactly know where the, field is at exactly. We are in week 1, of course, and so no one has really done any matches or anything like that, so we don't quite know where the skill level for both these pilots are, and the field even so is very wide open. Now at the same time though, we're actually pretty curious to see how this is going to go, because right now Blurple isn't exactly tier 2, and the removal of Blurple isn't quite there, which means that it can be a little ineffective when it comes to the end game. At the same time, being able to have a good board presence first and foremost is very difficult for it to do. You notice that if Blurple doesn't necessarily ramp well, that it can fall behind pretty quickly, especially when going against these aggressive decks. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they exactly are able to do. But without further ado, it looks like they are pretty much done, and so they are going to be getting ready. So let's tune in. All right, so it looks like they have just finished actually shuffling their decks, and they are now deciding which cards to mulligan. Looks like Silent Knight is going to be going first, which can be actually a pretty big advantage when you are playing SteelSong. Now, the biggest thing to understand about SteelSong is that it can be very good as it does use its singers to be able to do a lot of removal when it comes down to it. But at the same time, if you are unable to find some good draw power, you very well could get in trouble very fast. So the goal of Blurple is going to be here, get board control as fast as possible, and just hope that SteelSong doesn't get the draw that it needs. If he's able to do that, then Bowman does stand actually a pretty good chance at taking them on. And it looks like they are putting their cards back and doing their final shuffles to get the game started. Now, of course, half cut is always good. That's something to keep in mind with that. So Silent Knight is going to be inking a Lawrence to play a Robin Hood. Now, with that, of course, that's going to be really interesting because you're going to be finding yourself asking the questions, does Silent Knight have a big Robin Hood in his hand? Because if so, you can shift that in turn 3. And so it's like, do you want to risk using some of your removal to get rid of Robin Hood before that drop can happen? Because he might not have it, but you're pretty much assuming that he is. And so that's the risk and reward that you can have. But still, it looks like Bowman is going to be playing his Diablo to get some draw going. And Silent Knight goes ahead and plays an Ursula and quests for 1. Now, of course, that is actually not too dangerous of a move, considering that Diablo can do 0 attack. So, it's pretty much a free lore there. The danger, of course, is if, Bowman so chooses, he can send in, his Diablo into, Robin Hood to get the card draw before his turn starts. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they are going to do to try to develop their board and what they will do to try to get ahead and control this game. So it's going to be interesting to see what exactly is going on. Bowman goes ahead and inks a Tipo. And goes for a Sail the Azurite Sea, allowing him to draw a card, replacing the card, which is a really good effect right there. And then being able to ink 1 additional card for the turn. Now, of course, this does have to be revealed face up, which means that it has to be inkable, unlike what Tipo necessarily will be able to do. So that's the nice part. And so we'll see what he has to ink, and that'll also be telling Silent Knight exactly what else might remain or not remain in his hand. So he goes ahead and inks that card and passes it over after questing for 1. So Silent Knight, though, now having an Ursula out on the field, he can sing up to 4, a cost of 4. So that's pretty deadly. And goes ahead and inks a Smee. And goes ahead and plays a Robin Hood shift. Now being able to attack then into Diablo, gaining 2, and being able to get a little bit further ahead, and now having a 5 cost out on turn 3 is pretty dang scary. At the same time, if Robin Hood is taken out, then Silent Knight will be able to draw a card off of that banishment. So it's going to be interesting to see now how Bowman is going to be able to go back and develop his board. It's going to be a tricky situation for him, especially since Silent Knight seems to be getting ahead. But don't let that count you out, because Bowman is now ramping with some TPO as well. Is it going to be enough? Because now he is going to be at 5, 2 ahead of what Silent Knight is doing. Now, at the same time, the thing to keep in mind as well is that SteelSong necessarily doesn't need to really get ahead in these kinds of situations lore-wise. Normally, they want to get up to probably about 4 to 5 lore, and then, of course, their singers and everything will do the rest. They necessarily don't want to be inking every turn even. It's nice to be able to, but they necessarily don't have to, especially when card draw in Amber is so rare. You have your Rapunzel, of course, and then a few other options, such as a whole new world and maybe even some docks if you're running it. But it looks like Silent Knight in this case is not running it, but instead he is choosing to go wide here, going with a Robin Hood, and now playing a Daisy and a Leela. So, I mean, he's just really getting ahead right here. And the tough part is 6 ink, now 7 ink, going to be enough. Now, at the same time, being able to be at 7 ink this turn means that he very well could be playing a Hades and taking care of the Robin Hood. So, if he has that answer, that can really put or start putting Bowman back into the game. And of course, at the same time, you're almost okay with the ink going in, or the Robin Hood going into the ink. And so there we go. Bowman is at 7 ink after inking that card. And what is he going to do? Goes ahead and inks all 7 to drop the Hades and selecting the Robin Hood, just taking it out. And now the big thing is, of course, do both go into the inkwell? And the answer is yes, which means that now he will be going up, of course, to 5 because both are banished. They are 1 card, meaning that now they both go into the inkwell. And then he goes ahead and quests with the Tipo, going up to 2. Now, of course, Bowman is at 7 ink and 2 lore to Silent Knight's 5. 5 and 5. So, not too shabby. But Silent Knight goes ahead and plays an aerial, being able to dig 4 down and then add a song to his hand. And that can be deadly, especially with an Ursula already on the field. So if he manages to hit a Zeus, he will be able to automatically play that, dealing, damage to the Hades. And so that's going to be interesting. But unfortunately, it looks like he does not hit. That hurts. And it's interesting, especially because he is playing 14 songs and manages to not find one on a digging for 4. And so he's going to go ahead and quest 4. And looks like he's going to pass it over. Now, I'm not quite sure. It looks like Bowman didn't necessarily draw for the Daisy trigger, which is interesting. So we'll be sure to correct that later. But he now has 7 ink with a Hades out onto the board. Hades also has 3 attack and 6 health, meaning that he's going to be able to do some damage onto the board if he so chooses. You got to be very careful, though, because Silent Knight, if he does decide to tap it or exert it in any way necessarily, that at the same time that is going to mean that Silent Knight could potentially take it out depending on what cards he has in hand. But it looks like he is going to be trying to take out the Daisy with the Tipo and the Hades. Yep, looks like Daisy is now taken out. And that is 2 less lore that Silent Knight is going to be able to gain. But he still has 2 singers on the board, which can be absolutely scary when you are out on this field. So Silent Knight only has 2 cards in hand as well, from the looks of it. And all it takes is 1 Zeus and Hades is gone. But at the same time, one thing about Blurple is that they do have a lot of bounce back. And now he has all of his ink. He's going to be tapping 3. And I mean, if you have a fox or if you have a snake, you can bounce something back. And in this case, you would be selecting a Hades to be able to utilize it again to really start getting some good removal going on here. So it looks like we are tapping 4 for a Genie, getting that card draw engine going. And of course, remember, Genie is evasive. And so playing 2 Genies, which is really tough to be able to go against. Now that is 4 lore that they could be gaining this turn. So what is Silent Knight going to be able to do to respond to this now with 3 cards in hand? And so that's going to be a little difficult to face down. And this game could turn around just like that. But Silent Knight goes ahead and sings Zeus with Ursula, dealing 5 damage to the Hades, wiping him out just like that. And then Ariel is singing Zeus as well, taking out a genie. And then Silent Knight looks like he's going to be tapping for another Zeus, taking out another genie. And that just absolutely hurts, because now all those genies did were costing 4 to literally draw 1 card. And that is absolutely devastating. But the troubling part now is that Silent Knight only has 1 card in hand. And so that is a very tricky situation. If Amber Steel is unable to get any card draw in their hand, and Bowman can manage to continue to control the board better. If he happens to get more Hades out, he manages to play any blue removal, then Silent Knight could be in some big trouble, even being at 11 ink right now, or 11 lore right now. So it looks like an Elsa is going to be coming out, meaning that too will be unable to untap at the start of the turn. And it looks like Bowman did select Ariel and Lilo. And then, of course, looks like Tipo is going to either quest or attack. Yep, he is going to quest, putting Bowman up to 3. Okay, yep. So everything except, now that's the nicest part about the Elsa, is that the Elsa can exert 2, and then they are not able to come back into the game. So Silent Knight looks like he's opting to attack so that only 1 character can attack, this being of course, Elsa here. And it's a very difficult board for him to now be able to attack on. It's like, yes, you're able to play the Calhoun, but at the same time, the Calhoun isn't really going to be doing much. Blurple necessarily is just trying to get ahead in any way that it can, and even so, the Calhoun isn't going to necessarily be able to even take out the Elsa. You're going to have to put in a lot of attack, a lot of effort to try to get the Elsa even taken out, and even then, you're losing a lot of assets on the board, and so you got to be very careful about that. And so, the advantage is quickly shifting over to Bowman right now. And so I'm really curious to see if Silent Knight is going to be able to turn around this momentum. Now, at the same time, Silent Knight normally will be playing some removal, which is going to be good. And he's also going to be playing some card draw, such as a Whole New World, maybe some Rapunzels. But, I mean, even so, Rapunzels are going to be a little bit hard to be able to get going here. So it looks like the attack does go into taking out Ariel. Elsa will take 2 damage, and then move 2 damage with the bell from 2 onto the Calhoun. Now, the thing here is, Bell specifically says that you move damage counters, not damage. So the resist 1 that Calhoun has is ignored, and that is an absolutely devastating blow to Silent Knight, who still has 0 cards in hand. And so it's going to be really interesting to see now, what is Silent Knight going to be able to do to respond to this? Because right now, he is showing no signs of any card draw, minus the 1 a turn. And the momentum is quickly shifting into Bowman's favor. So what are they going to do? And this is also kind of the what you want Blurple to do. You saw how fast he was able to ramp up. And now he is playing friends on the other side to draw 2 cards and passes over. At the same time, Elsa does feel relatively safe, having 6 willpower currently, and it's like top decking a Pete necessarily is not what you want to see either. Lilo's going to be able to quest for 2, and that is all, and then going to pass. And it's like, what do you do against one that now has 3 cards in hand after the draw and 9 ink to work with? And that board is absolutely scary, being able to either quest for 5 or really start to control the board. At the same time, one thing that he is going to need to consider is, do you go ahead and attack into the Lilo when it has the ability to even come back every single turn exerted for a cost of 2? Or do you just really start putting on the, pressure by gaining lore quickly? And it looks like Bowman is going to opt into questing for 5. And then he still, of course, has his 8 ink. Looks like he goes for 3. Curious what he's going to do. To go for a fox, returning the Elsa. And now if he plays one more ink, he's going to be able to replay the Elsa, further slowing down Silent Knight. Because he's currently at 9. Or, no, he would need one more. So he's going to be playing a genie for the draw one. And with 2 ink left, goes for 1 for a Chernobog Followers. And so, I mean, right now, it is looking absolutely scary as he goes up to 10 ink and then swings in to the Lilo, only taking 1 damage. And so, whew. And I mean, the tough part now with Silent Knight is that he's only going to be drawing 1 card, and he knows very well that that Elsa is coming out this next turn. And so it's like, do you hold on to the card or do you play? Because, you know, the thing to keep in mind is once that Elsa comes out, it's fair game. At the same time, he's quickly falling behind as, you know, he's going to be able to quest for another at least 5. And then the Elsa is going to exert 2. And so it's like, well, there you go. Go to 15 and pass. That's all he can do. Now, should he have played this Smee? That's the difficult question, especially knowing that an Elsa is in hand. And it's like, the tough part is, you know, what do you do in that situation? Because you're just going to continue to fall further and further behind. Of course, Chernobog Followers is going to quest and then pop for you to be able to draw 1 card. And so there we go. He is able to draw 1 and is going to have a couple of options in his arsenal for him to be able to really gain control of this game. And this is absolutely devastating for Silent Knight. Ursula is then taken out, with Fox still remaining on the board. And it's like everything is just is shifting so fast for Silent Knight. It looked like this game was going to be his, but he just hasn't been drawing any cards, which has been absolutely devastating for his gameplay. There's the Elsa again, going to be exerting both the Smee and the Pete. And there we go, just like that. They are not going to untap either, so this is pretty much free questing. Going up to 13, and next turn he has game, so unless Silent Knight is somehow able to deal with this board, it looks like Bowman is going to be taking the first game. What did Silent Knight happen to draw? He drew a dock. Not exactly what you want to see. It's too little too late, unfortunately, and there's nothing that Silent Knight can do, and it looks like game 1 is going to be going to Bowman. Now that was absolutely that was an interesting gameplay, especially seeing exactly what Blurple could actually do. And at the same time, it's going to be really interesting because, you know, you're really hoping that SteelSong cannot draw well. If SteelSong draws poorly, then unfortunately Blurple is going to lose. At the same time, if Blurple is unable to get the proper ramp that it needs, then you are going to be in absolute trouble. And so it's going to be really interesting to be able to see, you know, what they are going to be able to do in game 2. Is Silent Knight going to be able to shift that momentum? And I mean, you know, time will tell here, and we're hoping so. But right now, going into game 2, Silent Knight will luckily be able to go first. But at the same time, if he manages to take game 2, then what that very well means is that game 3 is going to be in Bowman's favor, with him going first. And so this is already not a good situation that you want to have for SteelSong. But, you know, at the same time, the matchup is in SteelSong's favor. You just really got to hope that as playing Blurple, that you are able to get the draw power and get the removal that you need to gain control before it is too late. And so it looks like Silent Knight is putting 1 back and drawing 1, and Bowman considering to putting 3 back. They're going into their final shuffle. 4 back for Bowman, maybe. And with that being said, Silent Knight is ready and waiting. All right, so it looks like if when all things are said and done, 2 are going to be put back for Bowman as he shuffles and accepts his hand of 7. Now, Silent Knight will be on the draw. And it's like, you just got to try to hit the gate running as fast as you can with this because if Blurple can start ramping and removing your stuff and you miss on the card draw, you need to have as much lore as possible so that you can just make that final push as fast as you can. And now this is absolutely interesting. Dropping a 5-cost Robin Hood to play a Daisy. And you really wonder what's in his hand at that point, being able to drop a 5-cost. Because it's like, at that point, yes, if you don't have the small Robin Hood, then, what's the point of keeping the big Robin Hood? And, at that point, pretty much just Ink. Otherwise, you're holding on to him for 5 turns, and that's about it. And so I can see why Silent Knight did that, but at the same time, you wonder, like, does he have a lot of songs in hand? What does he possibly have going on? And it's also really interesting to see Bowman inking a Friends on the other side to play a Chernobog. Really interesting play because, I mean, yes, he is still going to be able to draw a card, but what else did he have in hand that caused him to be able to draw that Chernobog? And it looks like Silent Knight is going to be getting 2 daisies out on the field, gaining 4 lore a turn. At the same time, double daisy triggers can be very dangerous as the Elsa now goes to his hand. And a turn 5 Elsa, especially when you know that you have a 6-shift Elsa, can be absolutely scary to have to go against. So we get to see what's going to be going on. But still, 4 lore a turn while you're still trying to ramp. And that's assuming that Bowman even has ramp. He might not have ramp. Turn 2 Tipo might be able to give us a clue on if he does have any ramp or even sail the Azurite Sea. But if he's missing on those, then he's going to be falling behind fast. But it does look like he has a sail the Azurite Sea, which is absolutely good for him, being able to draw a card and playing an additional ink. So what will he then play? A Snake for his ink, bringing him up to 3 ink, getting ahead of Silent Knight now and playing a Broom. That's definitely things that you want to see. Now, with questing, do you pop? That's the difficult choice. And it's like at the same time, does Silent Knight decide then to attack in if he doesn't pop? And it's like, looks like he doesn't. So Silent Knight has the opportunity to attack, which can be, almost a little devastating on Bowman's side because, yes, Daisy takes 2 damage, but then he misses out on the card draw. So Silent Knight's going ahead and inking some Strength of a Raging Fire to play an Aerial. So there's a good chance that he does have additional songs in his hand if he's inking Strength of a Raging Fire, or he just doesn't have any other options to ink. But he manages to find Storm, which can deal 2 damage and draw a card. And so that's good on his part. And they know that 2 damage can come that way. And so Daisy is going to attack into Chernobog, denying the card draw, and Daisy taking 2 damage. Now, of course, Daisy, the other Daisy, will still be questing for 2, allowing for Peter Pan's Shadow to go into hand. So, you're just strengthening your opponent's hand with Daisy. And that's where some people have been wondering, is Daisy worth playing the 2 ink for the 2 questing for the 1/4? And it's like, because you can go and give your opponent so many more cards in hand. And for, 2 lore a turn, that's a little scary and a little difficult to consider. But it looks like Silent Knight still is going up 4 now, 2-1. And the opponent only has 1 character in play, which is a Broom. Now, of course, it'll be interesting to see how Bowman then responds to this. It's a very scary board. Ariel can now sing up to a cost of 5 song. And that can be a game changer. Singing, if he's running Grab Your Swords, dealing 2 damage to everything, or, possibly removing with Zeus, or even a whole new world for free, and then you have all that ink that you can still use to get ahead in your turn. But it looks like Peter Pan Shadow is going to be coming out after Broom's questing, and then he's going to pop the questing, or pop the Broom, in order to draw a card. And then looks like Daisy is going to be taken out by Peter Pan Shadow. So what is Silent Knight going to be able to do against this? This is going to be a difficult situation for him to be able to do. He might very well be in ink trouble, just not have a lot of options on inking, and that can be a little bit difficult to deal with, especially on SteelSong. And it seems like Silent Knight's had a tough time drawing, which is really difficult. Oh, Silent Knight tried to attack into Peter Pan Shadow, but he is evasive, so instead, they're just going to sing and draw a card to destroy Peter Pan Shadow, and then playing 3 for a Lawrence. Not too shabby. And then questing for 2 more, having another Daisy trigger over to Bowman. And he draws another card. I mean, at this point, that is 3 extra cards that Silent Knight has given Bowman. And that's absolutely devastating there. That can really be a game changer if Silent Knight is not careful with how he goes about that, because the tide can shift. As we saw last game, the tide can shift so fast, and you are just hoping that Silent Knight can still maintain control of the board while giving Bowman so much card draw. Now, of course, Bowman at the same time hasn't been able to gain too much advantage with his ramping, which is a little worrying. At the same time, though, he is going to this turn at least be at 6. Once he gets to 7, that's when a lot of things can start changing, and the board control can really start to shift over to Bowman's favor. So there he goes with 5, going for an Elsa, exerting anything, or just running into the Daisy. Looks like he's just going to be running into the Daisy, taking 1 damage. So at the same time, and it looks like he already did ink for turn, and so here we go. Silent Knight is drawing, and he's still only at 3, now 4. So he's going to be going for a Rapunzel, coming in absolute clutch right there, drawing 2 cards and completely healing the Daisy, pretty much making the Elsa attack null and void at that point. At the same time, luckily Elsa didn't necessarily take a whole lot of damage, but at the same time, you're still worried about that bell being in play. And so there goes a Storm to draw a card. And that's the tough part. It's like Silent Knight pretty much just played that to get the card draw, and it looks like that very well could be the case as he moves up to 10. And so here we go. Bowman's now losing some momentum. Silent Knight being at 10 can be very dangerous because it can be a matter of pretty much a turn, and the game could pretty much be over. And so Bowman has to figure out what he's then going to do to get back into this game. At the same time, now he can't necessarily take out a Daisy in one go. He can't take out an Ariel. He can't take out a Lawrence. So what is he then going to be able to do to help get back ahead and get into this game once more? And it looks like he's going to sing Let It Go, moving the Rapunzel into the ink. Now that's actually a pretty big blow. I mean, sure, Silent Knight was able to then move 2 damage counters and draw 2 cards, which is great, but at the same time now Silent Knight is unable to quest for 2 additional lore, which means instead of going for 7, he is only going to be going for 5, which is still a lot. Don't get me wrong, that's still a lot. But getting to 17, that's when it's scary when you're facing SteelSong, because just like that, in one turn, it can completely change. And now Bowman has bought himself a little bit more time, but at the same time, that is still too close for comfort. But he plays a bell, being able to put 3 damage counters onto Ariel, and therefore is now getting even more advantage. The board has quickly shrunk, and now he has no more songs. But still, Bowman will ink a goat and play a broom and pass the turn. So here we go again. We're seeing the tide start to shift, but again, is it too little too late? Because this time, Silent Knight has 14 once he inks. And at the same time, you kind of wonder, do you continue to build up your board as a Amber Steel player, assuming that they might not have the removal that they need? It's like that's a big possibility. But you got to be so careful about that, because if they start getting any removal, then what do you do? And it looks like, wow, a Simba coming out and a Robin Hood. Now that very well could be a reason why you would want to stall out for the turn. Because, if a Simba can go out, you can quest and ready all of your characters out on the very next turn. So Silent Knight, did not opt to quest at all, and is going to be threatening game if he can just quest that one time. So right now, Bowman needs to take out that Simba. And if he's even able to do that, it's like, well, you're still questing for 5. It's like that's a very difficult board to have to undertake, especially being at 3 lore yourself. And so Bowman's in a little bit of a trouble here, and Silent Knight very well could be taking game 2 with some ease. Now, of course, this is still a very competitive game and a very difficult game for both decks to have to face against, but Blurple is holding its own, which is absolutely incredible to see. And I mean, you love to see it, but man, it is just a difficult situation for them to be able to see this. So what are they then going to do? So Bowman has the ball. Ball's in his court. He has the opportunity to respond, going now up to 6. So tapping for 5 to bring out an Elsa, exerting the Simba, and it's a so long and goodbye, taking 4 damage on each Elsa. Now, the nice part is Elsa is evasive, so only an evasive character can go into it, but at the same time, that is a devastating blow to Silent Knight because that severely slows him down. Now, what was interesting too is Bowman actually didn't quest with the broom necessarily either, and then pop it for the card draw. I don't know if he necessarily forgot that, but that's a very difficult situation for him to be in. But he did not quest with the bell, and so it's still 3-10, and Silent Knight will be able to quest for 5 on the board at a minimum. That could very well be game at that point. And so we very well could be going into game 3 unless Bowman has something to pull out of his hat here. Silent Knight plays 3 to shift in the Robin Hood. And he goes and takes out the broom, gaining 2 additional lore. That is exactly the move that Silent Knight needed right then and there to get ahead in the game, taking 1 damage and going up to 12, and now then going up to 16 when he quests with everything else. It's like at that point, you're almost okay with that. Sure, like the Elsas and the Bells necessarily can't take everything out, and a Piglet now comes out onto the board. And he passes turn. Now, those top decks are absolutely crucial for Silent Knight to be able to win this. Wow. That board is a dangerous and scary board, so how is Bowman going to be able to respond? Hades would definitely help at this point. If he doesn't have a Hades, though, or if he doesn't have a Let It Go, then this is pretty much good as done. And we are going into game 3. So he inks for the turn, going up to 8. He could have an Elsa, too, and Elsa would be absolutely crucial in slowing down. He would need to have to exert probably the Robin Hood and the Piglet. But even then, that is also slowing him down greatly when it comes down to it. So, I mean, right now, Bowman has a lot of options here, but not a lot of them are looking good. Bowman's going to be attacking into Robin Hood, taking it to 5. Oh. Now, I think Bowman necessarily didn't realize that Robin Hood might have 6 willpower. That's a game changer right there. That's a big difference. Is he going to be? Yeah, he has to attack him with the Elsa, and that's missing out then on 2 lore if anything, but also 2 attacks in order to take out 1. And Silent Knight is able to then draw a card off of Robin Hood, and Piglet is still in play. And so I mean, there's just options that you need to start cutting out, especially because Lawrence and Daisy are going to be questing, putting you to 16. 19 if Piglet ends up staying on the board. But that's the tough part. It looks like Bowman doesn't actually have that many options going out for him. So this is a very difficult situation for Blurple to be in. You're only hoping that they are able to get back out and be on top, and this very well could be a SteelSong victory. Oh, nice. Going in with the Baymax, removing 2 damage counters to be able to gain 2. At the same time, this almost does feel too late. Yeah, that's too little too late, unfortunately. And it looks like Silent Knight's going to be able to quest to get up to 19, and he has cards in hand. And yep, that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to quest to be able to get up to 19, and then with the cards in hand that he has and 5, it looks like, yeah, they're basically calling it a game. I think Silent Knight is still going to be setting up his board just in case, which is smart, Um, doesn't hit with the aerial looking for a song, but still goes with a 2 for a Calhoun and a 1 for another Daisy. Ooh. Now that's a wide board. That is a wide board, and that's one thing that Blurple can really struggle with dealing with. Yes, they have some removal, but the problem with Blurple is all of their removal is quite expensive. Hades, Elsa's even for slowing down things. Let It Go is a 5 cost. You don't necessarily have a lot of very cheap removal. It's very expensive, and even though you might have a lot of ink in your arsenal, that's not necessarily enough to really do much of anything. So that's going to be very difficult for them to have to deal with. And so it's you hate to be in this situation, but I mean, what else can Bowman do at this point? He has cards in hand, sure, but does he have the necessary answers? Now, of course, Ariel can take out, Daisy. Elsa can take out Piglet. Baymax can't take out anything at that point. And then they quest. And even if you do manage to remove, 2 of their unexerted characters, he's at 19. Silent Knight only needs to quest with 1 in order to win. Ariel could stay on the board and he would still be able to win. So it's like Bowman's trying to figure out if he has the options, but I don't see where he's having the option. Yzma comes out onto the board, meaning that 1 will be able to return, which is good. And it looks like the Daisy will return to deck, and then Silent Knight will be able to draw 2 cards. That's a good turnaround, at least, a little bit. Some removal, but at the same time, that's a 6 cost. You have 2 left to be able to use. It's like, what are you going to do? And I mean, this is looking like it's Silent Knight's game, and we are going into a game 3. We're still not going to discount it until the game is over. That's the biggest thing. Because something could still come out. At the same time, I don't know what would actually change the game. And so we just got to be very mindful on how that is going to go. So what is Silent Knight going to do? Or what is Bowman going to do for that matter? He attacks in on a Piglet. Yep. But I mean, at that point, yeah, too late. He quests for 2, removes the damage, gains 2, and that's game. Yep, Silent Knight draws and quests, and that's it. Silent Knight takes game 2, and good job with that. And it's been actually really interesting because we haven't even seen a whole new world or anything like that from Silent Knight. We've seen Zeus's, we've seen Let It Go's, we've seen even one Rapunzel, and only one Rapunzel in 2 games. And so Silent Knight has actually been really struggling with draw power, which is super surprising. With that said, though, we're into game 3. And it looks like a Chernobog follower on Bowman's side and a Daisy on Silent Knight's side. And so it's going to be really interesting to be able to see who can go ahead and get the momentum. Now, keep in mind that Bowman did end up going first. That's awesome. And so he does have a little bit of advantage, especially on the ramping, and he's going to pop 1 and draw and goes ahead and inks a go on his turn 2 and plays a Diablo as well and passes over to Silent Knight. Now it's like, what kind of hand did Silent Knight open up with? 2 daisies seem to have really helped him last game, but was it enough? And he inks an Ariel for an Ursula, and that's kind of scary, and that's the tough part. It's like, did Silent Knight necessarily have any options? And Assail the Azurite Sea was drawn. No. So Bowman's missing out on some ramp right there, and he didn't play any ramp turn 2. He didn't have a single TPO. He didn't have any Sail the Azurite Sea. Silent Knight just put that at the bottom of his deck. That's not what you want to see. And that is so unfortunate. But, hey, that's the odds. And unfortunately, the odds in that case were in Silent Knight's favor. So with that being said, it looks like we are going to be going in and, questing for 1 and then bouncing and inking the Diablo that he bounced for a snake. Now, the snake is pretty scary, too, being a 3/3 at a 2 cost. And even though you do have to bounce something back, the 3/3 can be very devastating to have to face in the early game. So Silent Knight goes ahead and goes for 3 to do an aerial out onto the field. It's pretty good, inking the Lilo, and that's fine. That's not a bad thing. To draw a Zeus off the 4. Now that is something in your arsenal you want to play, especially when you have an Ursula who can sing up to a 4-cost song. And looks like he's going to do Strength of a Raging Fire on to the snake. Not a bad turn. And now he also has a Zeus, so you got to be very careful about what he's going to be playing next. And then questing for 2, activating another Daisy. Woo. Silent Knight is getting some good board control early. 4 cards in hand. At the same time, though, we've seen Silent Knight's deck really struggle with drawing. And so is that going to be enough? Time will tell. There's a lot of game left to be played. And it looks like there we go. Bowman playing a Genie. Now, of course, the Genie, that's a scary outcome because you know there's a Zeus in hand, and Silent Knight Zeused 2 Genies game 1. And so it's like, and you know Silent Knight has a Zeus at least. And now, of course, he's going to dig again with his aerial. Another aerial. That's 3 aerials he had. But that aerial missed. Ooh, that's tough. We haven't even seen SteelSong play a whole new world or anything like that. And there's the Zeus onto the Genie. But yeah, Silent Knight has not played a single whole new world. And it looks like Bowman just drew a rabbit off of that. So what is he going to do? Silent Knight is falling behind now, 3 cards in hand. He has the board presence, but at the same time, he doesn't quite have the lore game that you want to see. And so we will see what he is then going to be able to do here. Bowman, though, having no board out is a little bit scary, especially being only at 4 ink. You know, at this point, he could be at 5 this turn, but he's at absolutely 0 ramp this game, and so this is going to be a little tricky predicament for him to absolutely be in. And so you are just hoping that you are going to be able to gain some control here and get ahead. And yeah, the rabbit, you know, that's a great start on getting ahead, especially just because the rabbit can get you that card draw. If it happens to get removed from the board, awesome, because it can then draw you another card. Now, one of my favorite combos with rabbit as well is going to be able to play friends on the other side. Rabbit can sing that for free, drawing even more cards. And at that point, once you draw one, gain 2 for free off of rabbit, and then you banish rabbit, you know, it's like, and rabbit puts in the work for you, which is absolutely great to see. And that's one of my favorite combos with rabbit. And looks like Silent Knight is just racing to the finish. He only inked a Robin Hood and didn't play anything else. He did some damage, and that was about it. And now he's running low on cards again. Four ink to play with, but is that going to be enough to be able to do much of anything? Now, at the same time, Bowman has still really struggled with even building up his board. And so Silent Knight going up, he'll be up to 15 this next turn. If Bowman can stop building a board presence, he's going to have to start. So what is he then going to do? It's like, how can you get ahead of this board? At the same time, though, the singers are actually quite weak, all things considered. Oh, yep, there's the friends being sung by the rabbit. That's the thing, though. Silent Knight's board is relatively weak if he doesn't have songs to play. It's like each one doesn't have a lot of attack and doesn't have necessarily a lot of health. And so, you know, oh, there's a Tipo. And so that's the tough part with Silent Knight's board, is that it is not as fast as you would necessarily want with Amber Steel, especially with the fact that, you know, he's just not going very fast at all. And so I'm going to be very curious to see what Silent Knight is going to be able to do to help push to that extra 20. And at the same time, Bowman is still going to need to help get some board control soon, because if Silent Knight gets up to 16 and he still has 4 characters out on the board, it might be too little too late for Bowman. And so we are in a very tricky situation. Oh, and there goes the bounce back with the Tipo. And the Fox is going to be able to take something out. He's going to take out the Daisy. Now, that's already a good start to start shifting the board a little bit. And it looks like, yeah, the Fox is going to be able to have some options. That's amazing that the Fox came in just like that. And so instead of gaining 5s, now Silent Knight is only going to be able to gain 3. And Bowman's at the scary 7 ink that he can be able to use when it comes down to it. So Silent Knight draws and gets things going. So what is he going to be able to do? Oh, there goes a Simba out onto the board. And then Ursula is going to sing Zeus on the Fox. Interesting. And now again, Silent Knight's board is very dangerous. Now at the same time, Bowman, if he's able to get the correct cards in hand, and he does have some good cards in hand, he might be able to shift this board around still. Again, Simba is really the only line that is holding him up And so 2 more cards added off of Rabbit.
Yeah, sometimes the fact that she's a 4 and can sing
And
is
so, I
the
mean,
biggest thing.
is Simba even going to be out on the board enough for him to then be exerted so that, they can quest for, the 5 on the field and then all of his singers, ready? I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, with drawing now 4 cards in the last 2 turns off of Rabbit, 5 cards if you count Rabbit coming onto the board, that's a lot of utility that you have out on the board and that you can use to get ahead. And so I'm curious to see, what Bowman's going to be able to do because things can shift really fast. So 8 ink now available for
Simba
Bowman.
whenever he quests, right?
4 cards added by songs alone.
Okay. Alright, well, that helps me make up my mind. I'll pay 7.
Bowman's on the action and goes for a Hades, immediately
I was thinking about Elsa,
moving
but I'm like, if not Elsa and he's
the
gonna get
Simba into ink.
okay.
That's all it takes.
Last turn.
And just like that, they pass, and Silent Knight is only able to quest for 3. And if he does quest, things are going to be coming out. Oh, but he plays a Daisy. Now the scary part is, if Bowman has any bounce back, you can bounce back replay the.
Huh? No, I was like, hold on.
Oh, looks
What's
like
that?
Silent was trying to attack the Hades. Just a little hiccup in the brain thoughts. That happens. But just gonna quest to 14. That's risky. That is risky because yeah, if Hades bounces back with like a snake, for example, he can immediately replay it, continue to clear the board. But Silent Knight is trying to threaten game here, trying to race just a little bit faster to try to get ahead. At the same time, should he have inked or should he have quested last turn to go up 3? Because right now he would be at 17 and be threatening game that much more. And Hades is going into an aerial,
So I take what, 2?
taking 2 damage. And it's like, Silent Knight would have been at 17, but also would that have changed Bowman playing the Hades? Or would he have just gone wider or played, if he had a Fox in hand or something like that? And the tough part is, who knows? But still, Silent Knight missed out on 3 potential extra lore because he decided not to quest with the Simba. And it's like, that's the risk and reward of this game here, He chose not to quest to try to have more questing ability and more singing ability on the following turn if Simba survived. But with how much card draw Bowman was able to take, the odds of that Simba even surviving, as we saw, was slim to none. Those 5 cards that he drew off of action or off of characters and songs alone,
I'm gonna attack
gave him such an advantage.
Ursula.
Silent Knight only has 1 card in hand.
Draw.
Ursula takes 2 damage, and Rabbit gets destroyed and goes right back to hand.
Now I'm gonna pay 8.
And
You're
oh,
amazing.
that is absolutely devastating. And Elsa comes into play, exerting 2, and they are unable to ready at the player's next turn. So Ariel and Daisy, no go. And Hades then goes ahead and is ready to go, and a Tipo is inked. This can be absolutely devastating on slowing down Silent Knight. Now, of course, if he did go ahead and quest with everything, he would now be at 18. And again, though, that is a risk and reward, and that was not the choice that Silent Knight happened to make there. And that if Bowman didn't have the removal needed, then Silent Knight would be in a completely different situation right now. And so this is going to be very interesting to see then what Silent Knight is able to do with 2 cards in hand.
Get these 2 going and slow stuff down, but
And so it's tough. And that Hades luckily wasn't bounced back. The Elsa, though, could also either or could be bounced back and be absolutely devastating. It's like, gosh, what do you do? Silent Knight inks 3 for Strength of a Raging Fire. and Ursula attacking in to finish him. Interesting. It's like Silent Knight decided not to use. If he had a Zeus in hand or anything like that, he decided not to use it on the Hades to deal the 5 damage, but instead opted to use the Strength of a Raging Fire and then just attack in. And that's an interesting thought choice, because if he would have just quested for 1 and then done 4, if he had a Zeus in hand, and he might not have even had a Zeus in hand for all we know. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen here. Bowman has some good momentum going his way, but still, like we've said, Silent Knight is still in a good situation. So we will have to wait and see. What's he gonna do? This is where it really can come down to making even one mistake could really change the game one way or another. Bowman makes one mistake, Silent Knight very well could take the momentum at the same time. If Silent makes a mistake, then Bowman can. Now, Silent Knight at the same time is probably just hoping, hey, that he can get a whole new world. And if he's managing to get a whole new world, then this game could be over, especially with Bowman only being at 2 ink or 2 lore. That's devastating, especially because Blurple does not handle going wide well at all. It doesn't have that full board removal. And so it has to attack in or have abilities. And it looks like, yep, he decided to opt into taking out an aerial instead of a Daisy. But he still has also 9 ink.
Yeah, that's right. Then I'll pay 2.
He goes for 2 to play a snake to bounce back. Ink a Chernobog follower, and then that will put him to 10, and he can replay the Elsa, further slowing down Silent Knight. And that would be absolutely devastating. Silent Knight just being locked down by Elsa. And Elsa is such a good card. Now it's tough because, Elsa is so expensive. He's opting into the Genie to draw a card, and it's evasive. So unless he has a Zeus or something to take out the Genie, then there's not anything evasive in, Amber Steel to be able to take out an evasive character. He goes for the double Genie play again, drawing 2 more cards on top of that, and the 10 ink is looking so nice right now. Silent Knight's only at 5, or looks like he's at 6 ink, actually. So that's a little bit of a miscount for him, but he is going to be Zeusing one of the Genies, questing for 2, and a Daisy trigger will be going off. And it is another Sail the Azurite Sea. At least Daisy's hitting something. But the tough part is Piglet might be even coming in too little too late. Now, at the same time, too, that would have been game if Silent Knight would have quested with the Simba out on the board. Ugh. Again, that might have been the mistake to change the game. We don't know. Again, the whole game could have been played completely different if he would have quested with those 3, because you would have had 3 more targets to be able to attack. So that's the difficult part. That's kind of the mind game of Lorcana and why you gotta be so careful. And so, yep, he is so close to being able to take this game, but the momentum is quickly shifting, especially if Elsa comes into play one more time and exerting both of them. Then at that point, Snake can take out Piglet. Yep, and there's the Elsa. Both targets now are frozen for the next turn, unable to be readied. It's so tough. Silent Knight is just getting, just locked down by Elsa. I mean, this is a great feeling for Bowman. He has completely changed this board around, being 2 to 16. And Silent Knight's card draw has just been so bad. Oh, and there's the crab. He's probably going to be boosting the Genie to completely clear the board for Silent Knight. Silent Knight, I don't think he has any cards in hand.
Snake is going to take out Piglet.
Yep, and there's the takeout of Snake into Piglet and Genie into Daisy. Silent Knight has 0 cards in hand.
Not past.
If again though, if he can get a whole new world, that's really the only thing that can save him right now, and it's a Calhoun. Pass back. Oh no, this is not what you want to be seeing. Not at all. I mean, right now it's like you're getting 5 alone from your board. 7 if you quest with everything without attacking. And even so, he still has the arsenal, being able to play a Bell, removing 2 damage counters onto the Calhoun, immediately destroying it. Board is wide open. He's going to be able to quest with everything. And at this point, though, still, he has so much ink left that he's going to be able to even build his board further, and very well could be winning this next turn with a goat coming out, bringing him to 3 lore, and then questing for 7, going up to 10. He's got game next turn unless Silent Knight can pull a miracle, and I don't think there's anything in Amber SteelSong that can absolutely win this game for him. That is so devastating to be able to see, and even a Chernobog Valor for the final insult to injury on what Silent Knight can do, and there is nothing he can do. A Lawrence comes out. Too little, too late, and it looks like Bowman is going to be taking game 3, meaning that Bowman's Blurple took the best of 3 match. Now that is absolutely exciting to see. Blurple taking down SteelSong. Now, that was an absolutely amazing game to see, and I am so impressed with how they were able to go against the meta in that regard. The difficult part, though, of course, is unfortunately Silent Knight didn't have the card draw that he necessarily needed. We saw, a little bit of Let the Storm Rage On, but other than that, we saw 1 Rapunzel in 3 games. He did not have any draw power whatsoever. He's running 4 a whole new worlds and just was not able to see a single one. And I'm afraid if he would have, he would have been able to go a lot wider, especially with how cheap all of the stuff in Amber SteelSong is. He would have been able to go a lot wider and been able to change the momentum. So unfortunately, Silent Knight just didn't have the answers that he needed to be able to take this game, and Bowman was able to just take full advantage of that. Yes, he was unable to ramp very well during game 3, but he was still able to get far enough ahead that when he had the utility needed, he was able just to completely stop Silent Knight in his tracks and just take everything with ease. So just an absolutely captivating match that we have been able to see in this week 1 of Knights of Lorcana League. So go ahead and tell me what you guys think about this match in the comments below. And if you still want to sign up, you can for the Knights of Lorcana League. All you need is a webcam and a mic, and to have Pixelborn or Discord, of course, and information on how to join is down below. So grateful for you guys to be here. We could not do this without you, and we hope you have a good one. Until next time.